The story of how I started pro seasoning is this. I have for my entire career made an all-purpose spice blend that I have just kept next to the stove, whether it was cooking on a private yacht, teaching culinary school, or just cooking at home. I've always had this all-purpose spice blend that I just knock together and use it in order to save time. That way I'm not like salt, pepper. When I taught culinary school, it would get stolen out of my lab all the time because I'd make a quart container of it. So I was like, well, this must be good. And I used it all the time. My parents called it secret sauce, even though it's spice. And they would always request that I make it for them. Finally, I just gave them the recipe and they started making it for their neighbors. And then they started liking it. So then I said, all right, we're putting this in a jar. And that's how I started pro seasoning. Made by a pro, so you can cook like a pro.
Do you want to talk about food? I want to talk about food. Let's talk about food. What else are we going to do? We got nothing else to do. Let's go.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Nikki Talks Food. I'm Nikki Pettineo, your host. This is a podcast where I talk about food. Sometimes I have guests, sometimes I don't have guests, and anything food or food culture related, we're going to talk about. So let's get started. I have so much to tell you guys. Okay, so let's talk about the holidays. I took a little break from podcasting. I recorded a podcast with a very good friend of mine, Nicole Leog. She was on Big Brother, and we recorded an entire podcast, except for I lost the podcast because I had a recording glitch. I use Riverside for my recording, and my capture card, something malfunctioned, and it's still just processing. It's mocking me. It's sitting there in my processing section of my editing, so I can't get it back. But I've tried talking to their tech support, XYZ, whatever. They're not having it. So Nicole and I will record again. She is busy right now working and probably taking a little bit of a break because it was a heck of a season. So as far as, catering and chefing and all that kind of stuff. So Chef Nicole Leog will be on a future episode. So stay tuned for that. I apologize for not getting that one out, but this tech stuff is she's a finicky anomaly. So I took a little break. I just couldn't figure out like what to do next. And then, we had the holiday season for us, my wife and I, and, I was doing a lot of cooking. And so I just said, my, my, my food geeks will be there and, we'll come back around. So here we are. It is 2025. The theme for 525. The theme for 2025 for me is thrive. We're going to thrive in 25. Okay. So that's the theme. I just want to take care of myself and my immediate family and my close friends and cook and laugh and breathe. And one of the gifts I gave myself for Christmas, because, you got to give yourself a little gifty poo. I do. I got a ukulele. I love that thing. It came with a little baby tuner because, my hands are, okay, don't laugh at me. My hands are too small for the guitar. It just hurts. I don't like it. It's like an overextension of my fingies. So, I got this wild hair one day and I said, I want a ukulele. So I got this cute little ukulele, came with a little tuner, came with extra strings, a little bag. I got an app. Oh, it came with a strap, which is like it's like checkerboard, which is very punk rock. I was in a punk rock band back in the 90s. I was in a punk rock band. Well, we were a ska band. I was in a ska band in the 90s. I still have some flyers and stuff that we used to make before. I mean, this is before the internet. We're talking about like 1997, 98. And it was a ska band. It was called Nolly, and I played the trumpet. And I love playing music. I played music my whole life. I played since middle school. I started playing the trumpet. I played the trumpet all through middle school. I loved it. It was fun to be part of a big organization making music together. And then, in high school and later in high school, the last 2 years of high school, I played the mellophone and French horn, which mellophone is just a marching version. I was a band geek. Band geeks are, I'll tell you, they're some of the most successful people on this planet. People who knew people asked me, "Hey, you're a trumpet player. Do you want to, try out for this band called Nolly?" I said yes, and I brought in a kid that was in school with me, Alan. he played the trombone, and we weren't even really friends in the in the high school band. He just sat behind me, and I was like, "Hey, you want to come with me and try out for this band?" And he was the trombone. So we were like a good horn section. Anyway, we had fun. We did little tours, nothing major. It was very punk rock. We got into a van. We'd play these punk rock shows. So why I'm talking about that is the checkerboard pattern is very 90s, 80s, 90s punk rock. You know, you have or ska. You have the Specials, you have Operation Ivy, you have freaking Rancid, which they're coming out with a biopic on Rancid. I'm so excited for that. That was one of the first shows I ever saw. The first show I ever went to, we had these little bars and clubs in Fort Lauderdale. One was called The Edge. It was all black. Uh and it was The Edge. It was very edgy. It was dirty. It was in downtown Fort Lauderdale. And the first band I ever saw was the Ramones, with the original, with Joey Ramone, the original Ramones. I saw them. Then I went to like Rancid. We'd go to the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, Dance Hall Crashers, you name it. We'd go to all these shows, and we played these little shows. So anyway, it's a big part of my life before I got into food and beverage. So my ukulele came with a checkerboard strap, and I was like, that's it, man. That's a sign. So I got a little app, and the app is cool. I started wearing, I started learning chords, plucking, and also I've learned four chords for Somewhere Over the Rainbow. So that's what you start with and stuff like that. So it's been cool, man. I mean, I've been sitting on my patio in the evening with my puppies and strumming my ukulele, and just trying to enjoy life. So that's something that I've been doing. I also have gotten into collecting vintage lighters. So I wanted to show you guys my little collection. I get these wild ideas. I think it's part of ADHD. Your brain just goes get into hyperfixation. So I have this hyperfixation right now. I'd go to like antique shops and things like that with like my mom and my sister, and I just don't really have an interest for a lot of old things. I'm a little bit more of a modern person, but one day I was like, what about lighters? I started following this guy on TikTok who, he has massive vintage lighter collection, and he just like puts white gloves on and lights them, and I'm like, God, that's just cool. I mean, it just makes lighting candles around the house a little more classy. Here's one. I clean them up, and refuel them and change the cotton out, put the wick. This one's a Buxton, and it just see if we can get it to light. Oh, come on, you little monster. Oh, there she goes. Okay, so this one's kind of cute. It's like brass, and I don't know what year this one's from, but this one is an Evans, and it is from, I think, 1952. It says on the inside. It says on the inside 1952, but I'm keeping birthday candles in it for my kitchen. I polished it up, I cleaned it up, I changed everything out. It so far is not working. I can't get it to work. Can't get it to light because there is like a little mechanical malfunction deep inside there. So I'm still kind of tooling around with it, but I do like the idea of keeping birthday candles, and then when anybody has a birthday, open the drawer and I think it's freaking classy as hell. I think it's super classy. Like, something different rather than just like having a plastic little sleeve in there in your drawer. You have this vintage lighter case that, and they all kind of have a, story. I kind of make up stories when I find them. Like this one is a gold colored, I don't know if it's probably not real gold, but it's a gold colored Zippo. And I thought at the time when I bought it that it said baby on it, but it says Ruby. And so this one's a little hard. It's not very reliable either. Come on, Ruby. Ruby. There she goes. So it's got that classic little Zippo flame to it. And it makes lighting candles kind of classy and stuff. You got the noise. I don't know. It's like ceremonial, you know? Anyway, Ruby here. The backstory to her that I have made up. I don't this is totally untrue. It's fan fiction about this lighter, but okay, so Ruby, I mean, a lady's lighter usually would look like, would be a little bit more, slender or whatever. They would have like a little, I don't know if anybody's auntie or granny smoked in like the 80s and 90s, but they always had that little coin purse type of deal with the Virginia Slims in there. And it would have whatever, just a Bic lighter or something. This is a gold Zippo. So it's a little bit masculine looking, like it has this pattern on it. It just looks masculine to me. So Ruby, in my mind, owned a bowling alley. Ruby owned a bowling alley for sure. Like she was the boss. She didn't put up with anything. Ruby did not put up with anything. She ate a hot dog every day. That was her lunch. She ate a hot dog every day, mustard only. No onions. She don't want her breath to smell. She already smoked cigarettes. She knows. She always had mints. Always had mints behind the counter. Allowed some people to do gambling at the pool sharking at the pool tables in the bowling alley. Some people know. She'd cut them off. Right? Get out of my bar. Get out of my bowling alley. So that's that's Ruby's backstory to me. I love that. Oh, also, I also think it's kind of cool to, a lot of them have initials on them. So if you have if I have a friend and I clean up these lighters, I polish them up on my little polishing wheel and stuff like that. I'm kind of in the middle of doing some of these, but this one is really cool. I don't know what year it's from. Oh wait, let me see. I might be able to tell you. I don't know. Made in Switzerland. Uh, the initials A McC. So if I had a friend and their name was, oh, look how cute this little flame is. If their name was Andrew McCormick, I would absolutely polish this up, clean it up very, very nice, and give it to them along. If I had, birthday gift to give them or something like that, give them this lighter with a birthday gift or tie it on top of like a Christmas present or something like that. I just think that is so neat. Like, I think it's fun. It's creative. So I've been doing that. I got a couple more. This one is not really. It's got some. It's like these are pipe fit. This is a pipe fitting. This is also Zippo. I haven't fueled it yet. It's got like some. It's a pipe fitting company, but I would like to find company giveaways like this from like the 50s and 60s, 70s, 80s, whatever, of something to do with cooking, so it's something to hunt for at the for me at the antique shops. I got this little thing. It's so teeny weeny small. So I would like to do. We have a bar in our house. I mean, I'm sober, but we have a bar. It's a nice little cozy area in our house, and I would like to put a little curio cabinet and display the lighters there. Just as like people come over, we have a dinner party or something like that. It's something to talk about. Like, oh, look at these. This is teeny weeny small. I haven't fueled this one yet either. So anyway, that's my that's one of my hyperfixations right now. Other than that, the holidays were pretty good. We do Noche Buena. My wife is of Cuban descent. And so we try, most of the family, her family lives down in Miami still. So we try and keep the tradition alive for my nieces, and just to say that they can stay connected to their culture. And then me growing up in South Florida, I've been to more Noche Buenas on Christmas Eve than regular Christmas, than traditional American Christmas Eve, whatever that it ends up being, whatever that is. And it's fun. The party is Christmas Eve. That's the party for Noche Buena. The day of Christmas, I really like sitting around my PJs, eating cookies and doing nothing. Like, I don't want to have a prime rib. I don't want to have a brunch. I don't want to have any of that. I just want to watch silly Christmas movies, stare at the tree, and rot. That's what I want to do. I feel like the night before is the party. So this year, we did Noche Buena. I made lechon, um, asado with crispy, crispy skin. I got to write the recipe for that for you guys. It was really, really good. I got a really good picnic shoulder from a butcher, Porterhouse Meats in Havana. So I did go to Havana. I did. So up here in the North Florida region, we have Havana, Florida. I think that town was named Havana because they were producing cigars and they could label it Havana. So I think that's how they something to do with tobacco. This whole region over here was a lot of tobacco growing, and now like Quincy was known for growing tobacco, and now they grow tomatoes. They just swapped it out. So I got a really great pork shoulder, not the butt, not the pork butt, but the picnic shoulder is where it's at for really nice Cuban style pork. If you have any like input or you got an opinion on this, let me know in the comments what you think. But I use a picnic shoulder. I couldn't get a whole pig. We didn't have enough people for a whole pig. But I'm not against it. I almost was like I was trying to source a suckling pig, but I couldn't find one. Number one, number two, I didn't want to freak the kids out, so I decided not to try too hard on that one. And then this year was the first I couldn't find croquetas, ham croquetas, in the freezer section, and so I was like, well, let me just make it. And I use the recipe as a guideline, but really what it is a ham milkshake. I took an entire pack of ham, just regular sliced deli ham, and I pureed it with some heavy cream, just a little bit, just enough to make the blade spin. Pureed it down very fine. And then I made a very thick bechamel with onions, chopped very fine onions, very thick bechamel. Mixed the ham in there, seasoned it up with some yummy seasonings, and then you let it cool, and you form these croquetas, these little, your little. You roll them together like little, you make it into like a little sausage, a little pinga, little as the Italian people call it. Not that this is Italian, but a little piece of deal. I roll it into a little. I rolled it into a little piece of deal, and then tossed it in flour, egg wash, breadcrumbs, deep fry. Dude, the taste difference with a homemade, fresh made croqueta versus one in the freezer was astronomically delicious. And you make a lot, you can make a ton with one little recipe. So that is something I will be doing going forward. Forget it, it has to be fresh. And I want to try cheese croquetas, and just different types, because it was really, really yummy. I will write the recipe for that, and I will post that as well. chefnikki.net. Don't forget, I have like over 150 recipes on my website. So check it out. Other things to note, other things to note, like I just like kind of was being introspective and kind of floating outside my body this year, just looking at our tradition. And it's become so, I'm not gonna say weird for my family, but it's just interesting because my wife and I don't have any kids. And my parents are at the age where they would be grandparents. They would be, but there's no one to grandparent. My sister doesn't have kids. I don't have kids. And so we still kind of are the kids. But it's kind of like reversed now, because my sister and I are so hyper focused on making sure that my parents have such a like a great Christmas. We're just like sitting there watching my parents open presents, like, aw, and it's like, oh, look, mom, look in the stocking. I'm sure there's something in the toe. You know, and it's just so interesting how things shake out as you get older, the dynamics that change. And I realize there's also so much stress on having a great time. We have to have the best Christmas. And so it becomes almost, it becomes like we try and recreate what we had when we were little. But the thing is, when you're little, the magic is is, it's all new, as you get older you kind of like know what's coming. So I just think like going forward I just want to be less about the gifts and I just want to be more about, first of all, I want to make sure that I'm happy, my wife's happy, and I just want to be around people and have some laughs. Like that's what it's all about. I feel is that when you're around each other, not to like be staring at each other like, "Oh, we got to have such a great time," like just to relax a little bit and maybe have a little more fun naturally. It's hard to explain, because it was hard to get to this point where we didn't do the prime rib on Christmas Day and the brunch on Christmas Day because it was like kind of really disappointing to my parents and stuff. And I hate to be a disappointment. It's one of the things I'm working on in my life is trying to give myself some grace, you know. I don't want to disappoint anybody, but I also want to be happy. So it took so long to like get to this place where we could be like, I just want to relax on this day. I forgot what I was saying, but I just don't want so much pressure to be on the holidays. Oh, I know what I was gonna say. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I love Race Chasers, which is two drag queens, Willem and Alaska. They are catty. They are fabulous. This show is very well produced. They do a great job. I love them. But one thing Willem said last year is that tradition is peer pressure from dead people. And that freaking hit me. I was like, dude, that's kind of right. Like traditions are, well, we've always done it this way. And grandma didn't do it that way. And there's so much pressure, and I hate to keep like saying that word, but some of this stuff is peer pressure from people that aren't even alive anymore. And so the people that created those traditions could not have guessed the the world we live in today. This is absolutely bananas. So, and they could not have guessed the stress we're under, our daily lives, how our families, what our modern families look like. Uh, they couldn't have guessed that. So some things we have to move like liquid, we have to just be easy peasy. What's everybody want to do? I mean, the things that I want to do is really just, I do so much cooking. I like cooking. I love cooking Noche Buena and I love cooking Thanksgiving, but I don't want to cook Christmas Day. I want to just mellow out. That's how I want it. And if I go to a family member's house, I feel like I need to jump in. I need to do the dishes. And so I want to avoid that, you know? I just want to unplug. Uh, there's no expectations of work on Christmas Day to me because it's a holiday. The banks aren't open, the stores aren't open. It's a day to just be like, we're done. I'm unplugging. So I don't feel the need to fill that day with all kinds of stuff. Plus I'm not really religious. I mean, I'm spiritual. I'm spiritual as hell. Don't get me twisted. Do not think you know me, because I do believe like in a universal energy. I just don't subscribe to the patriarchy. I think that women, this is the last bastion of out in the open slavery, is the way women are treated via patriarchy. So that's what I think. And yes, I am the daddy. Come for me. You're gonna see how the sausage is made today. All right. So, another thing I was into was or ornament organization. As I was taking out our ornaments that Jen and I have like accumulated over the years and stuff, I just was like, this is horrifying, because we just wrap it up in a tissue paper and shove it into a plastic bin. So I got ornament organizers from whatever, different stores. And, they're not that big, but they hold like 100 something ornaments, and it has like little dividers, and it's got little drawers. It'll make things a little more special when we're unwrapping things. And so, I just didn't want to see this disgusting mess anymore. I was like, it's 2025. it was at the time, it was almost 2025. In 2025, next Christmas, I want to take out my decorations and be like, I am such a grown up. So that's what I did. I did that. Made by a pro, so you can cook like a pro. My all-purpose spice blend has garlic, it has paprika, salt, white pepper, it has not just any salt, Himalayan pink salt, and the only anti-caking agent is ground rice, so it is all natural. There is no silicone dioxide. After that, I came up with my Pro Seasoning Barbecue, and this is made with coffee, got a little zing to it. It's got chilies, it's got loads of garlic, a little bit of brown sugar, and it is fantastic. If you are a pellet grill enthusiast like I have recently become, you gotta try this. It's also great just dusted on chicken wings and thrown into the air fryer, drizzle with a little bit of honey, and then bam, you've got a very delicious snack or dinner that's on the fly. So I've done all the work for you because I've been cooking for 20 years. Newest flavor is Pro Seasoning Steak. It's made with porcini mushroom. You're going to love it. It is my opus to a great steak. It's got a little bit of tarragon. It's got some Himalayan pink salt. And again, the only anti-caking agent is ground rice. So what are you waiting for? Head to chefnikki.net and try it today. What else? Just to keep things interesting and to keep you on your toes and to show you the inner workings of my insane brain, we're going to take a wild swing to a totally different subject. So I taught culinary at a prison for 2 years. 2 years exactly. That was all I could do. I couldn't make it past 2 years because it was mentally kicking my brains in. And it wasn't the inmates. I loved working with the inmates. I loved teaching them. It was a men's prison. You know, some of them were really willing to learn. Some of them were just absolute drug addicts, you know, and you have to kind of like, you know, do what you got to do to make sure that the ones that want to be there are there. But the way that I've boiled it down to describing it is that I am born and bred to be in hospitality. I've been in hospitality since 1998, shortly after being in a punk rock band, or while I was in a punk rock band, but towards the end, whatever, 1998. I've been in hospitality, food and beverage. And when you're in hospitality for that long, and then you go into the least hospitable place, you have a little bit of a hard time figuring out how to do the best thing that you can do for your students without pissing off the entire Department of Corrections. So it got crazy. But I wanted to tell you guys a couple of little things about prison culture because I had a front row seat for this. So, you know, I am not good at catching thieves, let's just say. And then everything I had a beautiful kitchen. I had a beautiful kitchen. I worked for the community college here, and they have a contract with the Department of Corrections. And so the kitchen was really, it was a great kitchen lab, you know. We had fridges, whatever, you know, I had keys and everything to lock everything, but you know, everything is a commodity. Like if I got jalapeno peppers, those jalapeno peppers would be, they would be, and also we had a garden as well. And the peppers would go missing from the trees because it is not the trees, the plants. The peppers were such a hot commodity, you know, and everything is for sale. Like for instance, one thing that coming from hospitality, food and beverage, I worked on a private yacht. I taught culinary school at an exemplary accredited university. You know, and then I'm in this prison teaching, not as a, you know, I was a free person, but I was teaching in this prison, and the paper towels would go missing, you know. The paper towels were a sought after commodity. I was not anticipating that. And here's why. Here's what they do. So the inmates will go what they call fishing. and they'll find some dental floss or whatever it is, string from their uniform, and they will somehow fish cigarette butts out of like drains, the sewers, and they'll fish them out, fish them out, fish them out, and then they'll collect the littlest bit of tobacco out of those butts, and then they'll take paper towel and they'll make what's called coffee paper, and they'll take the paper towel and they will soak it in. They get this powdered coffee called keef, and it is a instant coffee. And I mean, they would just rip the top off and go like, I've never in my life seen anybody eat instant coffee, but they would just dead eyes. It's one of the students said to me one day, it's like seeing the inner workings of someone's brain, and they're absolutely right. So, at any rate, they would take this keef coffee, they would hydrate it in warm water, and then they would take the paper towel and they would dunk it into the coffee, dry it out, and they call that coffee paper. And sometimes they would just roll that coffee paper and smoke it, or they would smoke it with the cigarette butts that they fished out of the sewers. And so that becomes somebody's hustle, you know? So paper towels would go missing. One day I noticed pieces of fish were missing, but it's raw fish. And I'm like, in my brain, that I'm like, how can they cook? I'm like, that's not possible. In my brain at the time, cooking was not possible. I was like, why would they take raw fish? What are they doing with it? It's frozen cod. Like, what are they doing with the fish? And then, I would have inmates that finally, they'd let me flounder, no pun intended, but they'd let me flounder a little bit and go think that there's no, and then days later they'd go, well, there's this thing called a stinger. And I'm like, what's that? And and I went home and I Googled it, and this is highly dangerous. So I am not telling you guys to do this. But what they do is they'll somehow get a cord from anything, a fan, like a plugged in fan or something like that, or somehow they get a cord. Maybe it's contraband, maybe somebody brought it in, whatever. They get a cord, power cord, and they cut it off from the thing that it was attached to. And then they take one of the wires, they take both wires, one wire they wrap around something metal, the other wire they wrap around something metal, and then in between they put something that does not conduct that energy, like wood, right? And I'm not sure I'm 100% explaining this correctly, and so if you're going to try this, please don't try this. I'm telling you right now, do not try this. Do not try this. But from what I understand, this is how they make their stinger, right? So a metal around one cord, like a fork, another piece of metal, same thing, a fork or something. But they had plastic forks, so I really don't know. They had sporks, so I don't know what kind of metal they used. And then they submerge it in water and then plug it in, and that will boil water. And if you take it out of the water and it's still plugged in, I think it shorts everything out. It'll short the whole cell block or dorm out, whatever. But that's how they were doing it. That's how they cook. So if you ever wondered how inmates cook, that's it. They cook like that. There's other ways they do it too, but that's like when the prison I worked at was more like there was no cells. It was like a dorm, and they're set up like army barracks. So I've seen videos of inmates in their cell cooking on lighting up the bed they sleep on because it's metal, and using it like a flat grill. But this wasn't the case where I was at. So I learned that. And then, my dad is like really, he's not a trained electrician, but he knows how to rewire things. I said, Dad, you're never going to guess how these guys cook. And then he was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Another interesting thing, how they make a lighter to light those coffee paper cigarettes is they take a battery and a Brillo pad, and then attach the Brillo pad to the battery, and that makes a lighter. I'm telling you, don't do this at home. I don't want you to burn your friggin' house down. This is this is potentially very dangerous stuff, but that's ingenuity right there. So you learned about a little bit about prison culture. What else do I got to talk about prison culture? Okay, so we did the paper towels. Oh, they would take my parchment paper and use it. The tattoo artists would use it as a stencil, so that would go missing. Uh, the way they do tattoos is they it's almost like I feel like the prison system has things available just in the commissary for them to buy just so that they can have a little bit of something to do other than it, because a large percentage of incarcerated people are not going to see an education program. They're going to just sit there and be locked away. So I mean, for whatever reason, the commissary sold razors that would have like there's a little motor inside. I think they're the kind of razors that like do little vibrate or whatever. Why do they need that? They don't need that. Like there's a barber, And so the way they would do it where I was at was they would light so they make the ink by lighting something like checkerboard pieces or chessboard pieces, and they'll light it on fire and then put something over the fire and collect the soot, and the soot would collect on because it would go up like smoke, right? So the smoke would go up, they'd collect the soot, and they scrape the soot into like a shampoo bottle or something. And again, I'm not telling you to do this. Please don't come freaking suing me and shit. Like this is just what I learned, and I thought you guys would find it interesting. They would collect the soot, then they mix it with something like shampoo or something like that, and then they would take a staple or a spring that they had sharpened, one needle. So I've got lots of tattoos. I cannot imagine sitting for a session with a tattoo for like an entire back piece and like with one needle. That sounds so painful. So they would make a little tattoo gun out of that, and they would. I mean, the tattoos that they got, I'm like, these are some of them are really terrible. Like you look at them and you're like, holy crap. Like I had a guy that I was like, his whole face, it was like a detention desk. A couple of people that that had those kinds of tattoos. I mean, I'm not here to judge. The same guy told me this. This is the first time I ever heard this too. And I think this is funny as well. You my guys might enjoy this too. But we were talking about getting pulled over. And this guy says, I've never pulled over. And I go, you've never been pulled over? And he goes, no, I've never pulled over. And I was like, yeah, that's a big difference. Well, that would be why you're here. So that's how they do tattoos. And some of the stuff I saw, I was like, God, that's a really extraordinary. Like with a staple, a vibrating staple, and a soot from a checkerboard piece. Hey, you got plenty of time in there, I guess. Okay, what did I used to call this segment? I think I called it I'm Over It or something like that. But I want to change it to this. We're gonna call it 86. Take it out of my face and never show it to me again.
That's ridiculous.
I have a petty grievance, and my petty grievance is this: I've noticed that wait staff have become complacent as far as, and I don't always want to rag on the wait staff, but this is just observations from going out to eat. I hate it when servers will come to my table and auction the food out, meaning they'll come up and they'll be like, oh, who got the cheeseburger? And they'll like, the way that's fixed is that the servers memorize seat numbers, right? Usually seat numbers work like this, whatever. And you usually would do it in relation to the front door. So the front door of the restaurant, the first chair to the left would be seat number 1. And then you go around the table 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, when I ring in my food, I go seat 1, cheeseburger, medium rare, no lettuce, tater tots instead of French fries. Seat 2, grilled chicken salad, extra olives, whatever. Then that way, when I bring food over, I don't have to guess. If I pick up the food in order at the window, and I put the food down in the same order, then I don't have to walk over and go, oh, who had extra olives, or mix it up and like you're trading stuff at the table. It's just so tacky. I need front of the house managers to do better on that one. Train your staff on seat numbers. Don't let them ring everything in under seat 1. It's tacky. Because what happens if they want to split the bill? People want to split the bill. Then you got to the server has to sit there and split it up manually. All they would have to do is go seat 1, seat 2, whatever. Let's use our brains. Let's get back to it. Let's get back to work. Remember, you're here to serve people. You're called a server because you are serving people. It's not about you. It's not about you. It's about them. It's about the people sitting at your table. That's what hospitality is. Let me take care of you. That's what you want the vibe to be. When I teach my I'm not a perfect person, but when I teach my cooking classes, I always say this to the folks that come, and they spent money to see me cook and taste my food and learn some stuff. So I always say this. This is a sliver of time where you and I have some belly laughs. You're going to learn about some food. You're going to eat some really great food. If you need something, let me know. But I want to make sure that I'm anticipating your needs. And if I don't do that, let me know. Because that's hospitality. Okay, 68. I'll have another serving of this.
Where do you get a bologna log from?
I am predicting, this is my prediction. This came out of nowhere. I am predicting that in 2025, comfort foods are coming back, that will be a trend, because we had this trend in 2007 to 2010. That was when we had the world financial crash, and everyone was eating comfort foods. That was the trend. You know, we were tucking into chicken pot pie, diving into velvety bechamel rich chicken pot pie, pulling a flaky blanket of crust over ourselves and just eating our way through crisis we were in. Merry crisis. I'm predicting there will be a low carb element to this, but I do believe we are headed for meatloaf. We are headed for Mama's yellow cake recipe with boiled icing. I believe we're in for humongous brownies topped with caramelized walnuts, torched marshmallows. I think we're in for soups on soups on soups. I think people are going to be like, I just need something to hug my belly. I think that's what we're in for. I think I am making the prediction. I mean, this is the beginning of the year. We'll see how it goes. And if we don't head in the comfort food direction, I'll say I'm wrong. But I think that is the next food trend. You let me know. You let me know what you think. What do you think's going to happen? What kind of food trend are we in for? We're going to have a lot of food news coming up. We're going to have a lot of food news. It's going to be a lot of stuff, interesting stuff happening. So we'll see. We'll see what goes. We'll see what happens. And I think that's it. Thanks for listening, guys. If you like my show, don't forget to subscribe. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know what subjects you want to want me to talk about. Let me know if you think there's going to be somebody good to have on the podcast as a guest. You can email me at nikkitalksfood@gmail.com. Let me know your questions. If you have any food questions, if you're, let me know. I want to know.
What else are we going to do?
We'll talk about it. And that's it. Thanks, guys.